What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're continuing with the Battlefield 6 momentum right now. A lot of people are really interested in this. However, there has been one last missing piece of the puzzle for a Battlefield game that hasn't really been talked about or addressed until last night, and this is a proper server browser. So today, I wanted to share some of the updates we got on this, but first, let's just talk about what a server browser is, since the majority of my audience comes from Call of Duty, and especially on console, that's just something we haven't had access to. So I'm sure there's many that aren't really familiar, but what you get with the server browser is the ability to see a list of these servers that are currently hosting games. And with this list, you can see how many players are in that server, your ping to that server, as well as the maps, modes, and rule sets of that server. And then you just find the experience that you want to play with the ping that you want, you select it, and you join the game. There's no need to matchmake and wait for matchmaking times to take place, and you have full control over the experience you're about to have. And with this, you can have official servers that are hosted by the developer, and these are just the standard rule sets on the standard maps, standard modes. Or you can have custom servers where players host the servers and they create their own custom experiences where they can adapt the rule sets. They can select only the maps and modes that they want to play. Oftentimes you'll see servers where it's just one map, one mode, 24/7, non-stop. And traditionally with Battlefield, server browsers have been a very core part of the experience. And like I said, it's kind of that last missing piece of the puzzle for having all of the elements, at least, of a perfect Battlefield game for many players out there. I'm not necessarily saying that just because the elements are there, it's going to be a perfect Battlefield game. It's just that those are the core key elements that need to be present in order to create the conditions for a perfect Battlefield game to happen. And last night, we finally got some official talk about server browsers from Alexia Christofi, a producer at DICE. And first, she posted this tweet just basically asking people to explain in their own words what they're looking for in a server browser, why they want a server browser. And then following that, she created this list of the main things that she was seeing, or at least some of the main things she was seeing. And I wanted to go through this list, and then after that, I wanted to talk about why a lot of people are still unhappy even after this communication. So diving into the list she created, one of the really important things about server browsers is the ability to have persistent servers that last match after match after match. So when you finish a game, you don't get kicked back into a matchmaking state where you find a different server. You can stick with that same server over and over all night long, or in many cases, you can even do that week after week or month after month. You can have a preferred server that you join. And in many cases back in the day, you would see the same people joining that same server as well, because that was their favorite server and it's your favorite server. And that really contributed to forming a sense of community when you're just constantly recognizing the same names. And just like with Call of Duty and our arguments against disbanding lobbies, these persistent servers allow you to develop friendships and rivalries over time. You can have rematches, you can adapt to certain players or squads even in the game. And another big key here with persistent servers is you can have a consistent connection experience game after game after game, because you're not getting tossed around from one server to the next every time you finish a match. And that leads into the second thing on our list, which I basically just covered there with persistent servers, and that is a sense of community and a way to play together. And on top of that, I'll just add an additional point here with a sense of community. At least when it comes to custom servers, a big benefit of that is you can have server admins that moderate the server. And this is a very effective method of server level anti-cheat, at least as well, since those admins can pick up on cheaters instantly and just ban them from that server. It doesn't ban them from the entire game, but it at least gets them out of that server and helps create a more consistently clean experience without cheaters. Although there is a downside with that as well, and that is oftentimes you would see some power-hungry admins that would just ban people for effectively no reason, or if they were just mad that you killed them too many times. So it's not all upsides there, but it definitely helped with anti-cheat efforts. Then she mentions you have the ability to select specific maps and modes, and also filter by ping and server fullness. And all of those are a huge benefit to server browsers because you select the exact experience that you want. You're not just hitting the matchmake button and hoping that you get the map that you want to play and hoping you end up on a good connection. You have full control over that for yourself. And then finally on her list, and this is a very important one, this is support for low population regions. And the key with this is if you have a very low population region and you just use matchmaking, oftentimes you'll end up in an empty server, or a reasonably empty server at least, where you might find a few other people, but it's not a full match. And you don't really have control over how many people are in the server that you're joining. Whereas with a server browser, everybody can see how many people are on the server in their region with the ping that you're looking for. And in seeing that, people will often join the servers that have a decent player count. And that naturally funnels players from those low population regions into single servers, or a small handful of servers that are consistently full of people from those low population regions, unlike when they matchmake and it just tries to find a random game for them. So those are the main points that she highlighted here at least, and then she went on to explain that she thinks that their server browser solution that they already have will answer all of these wants. And that server browser solution is Portal. And with Portal, you can create community experiences, and it looks like they're really taking things to the next level with Battlefield 6 compared to 2042's Portal. She also mentioned there will be the ability to award full XP with certain Portal modes, and Portal will be front and center in their main menu. It's not hidden away, and it will allow you to filter and search for the specific things that you want. She then went on to say that there's going to be more to share in the future, and we can talk more about if and why it feels like it's not enough at a later date. So there we go. It is nice to see them listening and communicating about important issues, because server browser was that last big thing that was just flooding a lot of conversations, because it was one of the last big core elements of Battlefield that hadn't been addressed yet. So it's good to see them addressing this directly and being quite open about it. And while it is a good list of elements with the server browser that she brought up here, and Portal is going to be offering these benefits of that server browser, it's not quite exactly what many in the community have been clamoring for. And for many, it seems like this was kind of dodging the main point that people are asking for, and that is having a server browser for the official standard games. So basically, like what we had access to in Battlefield 5, for instance, where if you want the simplicity of standard matchmaking, where you just select your game mode and hit matchmake and it will find a game for you, you've got that option available to you, or you can go to a more advanced search, and this is where you can browse for those official games, and you can select the exact map and mode and ping that you want. And it's the exact same games and servers that you'd be getting into if you're hitting matchmake. It's just with this, you select the experience for yourself. With a system like this, you get the convenience of just hitting play now and basically just matchmake into something, and you're essentially rolling the dice and you get whatever map they decide to put you on. Or you have full control and agency over your experience if you want to go in and select the exact experience you want. You also get all of the benefits that she listed in her tweet, with having persistent servers, a sense of community, and good support for low population regions. But on top of that, a lot of people just want the standard vanilla experience. They want to play the regular maps, regular modes, no crazy rule sets, while also having the ability to browse for the modes that you want to play. And I think that's totally reasonable to ask for, especially since we have seen it in the past and the system worked quite well. So why are they at least currently not offering this ability and only offering a server browser for the Portal experience, where it's likely just going to be flooded with a bunch of community-created modes, a lot of bot farming modes, or wacky rule sets that are completely different from the standard game? Well, I do think it could be for a variety of reasons. One reason might just be the way they're handling their server infrastructure now to save costs. They don't want to have persistent servers that they're hosting regardless of whether or not people are playing. They create a separate instance every time a server is needed, and then they get rid of that instance when it's not needed. So it adjusts to the player count throughout the time of day or day of the week, since there'd be a drastically different demand in servers depending on the time of day or day of the week. But another big element here that wasn't really discussed is skill-based matchmaking. And this is something they have confirmed will be present in the game, but they've also stated it is going to be fairly weak and largely focused on team balancing rather than matchmaking. But they did also clarify that skill is a part of the actual matchmaking experience. So when you search for a match, skill is going to be a factor in that search. But they listed it as a fairly low priority, and with a game like Battlefield, especially with the large player count modes, I'm not particularly concerned about having ridiculously strict SBMM like we tend to see in Call of Duty public matches. But at the same time, there is at least some concern there that there's going to be a noticeably different experience for different players depending on your skill level. And having a server browser would eliminate any of this concern, because with a server browser, you can't really have skill-based matchmaking be too strict. You can still team balance, but you can't have strict SBMM, since people are straight up bypassing any sort of matchmaking algorithm by selecting the server they want. So I do think for many, it's also nice to just have that peace of mind knowing that with a server browser, they can't be using matchmaking algorithms to manipulate your experience and make it a drastically different experience depending on your skill level. And in my eyes, at least, those are probably the two main factors that will prevent us from getting a server browser for the official games that you would also be able to access through matchmaking. And instead, we're probably just going to be seeing this server browser for Portal, which is going to be largely just community-created experiences, and oftentimes experiences that people aren't really looking for when they just want to play the base game. Now, at the same time, at least communication-wise, it seems like they're doing a good job with things so far, and it appears they're at least open to continuing this conversation down the road. But I'm not going to be holding my breath for an official server browser playing the regular modes and the same servers that people are matchmaking into. Would I love to see that? Absolutely. I think that would be the ideal, and if they're really trying to make the best Battlefield game possible, I think that is a key element that would be required to create the absolute best Battlefield game that could exist. But at the same time, if they don't have it, it's not going to be a deal breaker for me. I'll still be getting the game. I'll still be enjoying myself with it, I'm sure. I would just end up being a bit disappointed. Now, of course, these are just my thoughts on this whole situation, and this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How do you feel about the fact that we are going to have a server browser, but only for Portal, and it looks like we're not getting the server browser for the official modes that you can also matchmake into? Is this a big deal to you? Maybe even a deal breaker for the game? Or not so much? Do you not really care at all? Or you maybe just don't care enough that this is going to be a deal breaker? Just let me know all of those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.